what is behind you running for governor of California?
I am doing this because I'm kind of tired of where we're at and where we're going. I think for a while now, it's been very obvious that we keep electing the same type of people. We keep electing people that tell us they're going to do something and they don't, or we're convinced by their really well-formatted campaigns with them standing next to children, smiling, thumbs up, going, I support education, and then, we decide to pass propositions that end up making it worse, or firing more teachers, or furloughing more teachers. I'm just tired of this. I've been tired of this for a very long time, and I think everyone else is as well. And I think it's time for something different, something drastically different. So that's why I'm doing this.
Do you believe you can bring in the drastic change?
It's not up to me. I mean, as a leader, I have to make certain decisions, and I have to give out certain suggestions and tell people what I think is best for them. But ultimately, it's going to come down to everyone else and the votes and the constituents, that a majority of them will want a certain thing and a minority of them will disagree with it. I think a lot of it, to tell you the truth, comes down to what Steve and I are doing right now, which is working together. Steve Weinstein is a candidate who's running for Congress. He's a registered Republican, and this is the first time that I think you're really going to see two different generations, two different types of ideology, two different types of people come together and say, we're done. We're done fighting. I don't want to argue with you anymore. I understand that you have different positions and that there's different mentalities and different types of ways that you view life, but they are so minute in difference that our biggest common goal is we have to work together, and we have to figure this out right now before there's any more damage done. So I think that's what it's really going to come down to, is if I can get everyone in California to just take a deep breath, stop fighting, and let's do this together. I think it's going to be our biggest challenge.
Okay. So why don't you start with introducing yourself a little bit?
Wonderful. By the way, I love to bring a little humor into my life and my professionalism, and that's kind of odd to say I bring humor into professionalism, but it's the truth. So I'm hoping to bring a little bit of humor into this whole campaign as well. So my name is Joniel Zelaya. I am a registered Democrat. I was born and raised here in California. This is my home, more specifically in the Bay Area. I was very fortunate enough to grow up around Redwood City, San Francisco, San Mateo, San Jose, Los Gatos, Sunnyvale, Saratoga, kind of the general Bay Area, Oakland. Can't leave Oakland out. Love Oakland. The zoo there is actually pretty fantastic. Sorry. I love the Oakland Zoo there. I am the youngest of three. I have two older sisters who are, I love them. I love you, but they're crazy. I also have a wonderful mother and father and an aunt who is like my second mother, they all raised me. Being that I grew up in a very business-oriented Catholic upbringing, I also grew up in a very, how do I put this politely, woman-dominated atmosphere. So what they taught me and what I learned about when it comes to certain equality measures on women's rights and stuff like that, it's kind of a different world in a way. I think if I grew up with more brothers, I maybe would have had a different mentality, but they definitely taught me a lot. when it comes to our women's history and our past in it, and some of the triumphs that they've had, to tell you the truth. But considering that I'm not Catholic anymore, I still do value a lot of the stories and the beliefs that they have, and just common things that you would even see in some of our politics, which is, be kind to one another, don't steal from one another, help your neighbor, help your friends, just simple things, great stories that are really inspiring, to tell you the truth. So, and I grew up with it. It's not like I can say, oh, forget about Catholicism. I'm never going to talk about God again. No, I mean, the truth is, it's just, I have chosen as an adult to believe in something a little different, that's all. It doesn't make me a bad person, and those who believe in Catholicism or any other religion doesn't make them a bad person. It's just a different belief. That's it. That's all it is. So, and if you're gonna ask me about my age, fine. Do it, get it over with. We might as well talk about it. Everyone in the world keeps asking me about it. Not everyone in the world, but go ahead, ask it for the camera. No, say it clearly so they know what you're asking.
What is your age?
I'm 27.
Okay.
But when I get into office, I'd be 30. And I, technically speaking, would not be the youngest candidate to run or to ever win an election. Do you want me to dabble a little bit more into that? Because a lot of people have been asking me about that. And I always see in people's face their physical reaction when I say, oh, I'm 27. They give me this look of, huh. Like, oh, let me, don't you think you're a little too young? Or so, if you will indulge me, I'll go into that a little bit if you want. It's up to you.
Okay, go ahead. So let's see.
Oh, please don't be enthusiastic about it at all. Here's my thing. I think it's pretty clear, and it's pretty obvious at this point. It's particularly in this point that we are a society that has had technology and companies, and we've had movements and nonprofits and political measures that have been done by people my age, younger, and with absolutely no experience. I think it's a little, I don't think it's really necessary to say, well, because you're 27 years old, that automatically puts you into a category of this is what you're capable of and this is your limitation. I think when we look at people like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg, who were younger than me, didn't go to college or dropped out of college, had no experience whatsoever, and revolutionized the world as we see it today. I know that in the past there have been hundreds of people who have served in our Senate, in our Congress, people who have become governors and mayors who were younger than me, and again, very little experience or no experience at all, and they were just the average person who wanted to change their surroundings for the better and good of everyone else, not for themselves. It was never about, I'm getting into this because I feel like I can self-benefit from it. It was, I'm doing this because I want to help people. More so in the fact when our nation was started, I mean, it wasn't by people who were mature, I think would be a nice way of saying it. We had a lot of young people help start this country. So when people say, I think you're a little too young, or I think you don't have any experience, I'd like to change their minds. I'd like them to give me a chance, and I can prove to them that I am very capable of this position. Very capable. I'm gonna say it. I don't know if he's gonna like it or not. please forgive me, Mr. Schwarzenegger, but I just have to put it out there. We elected Arnold Schwarzenegger as our governor. No experience in politics whatsoever. He was an I'm sorry, I have to go off on this because I had someone say once, oh, well, he was married to Maria Shriver. Okay, so you're saying because he was married to Maria Shriver, that somehow makes him qualified to run one of the largest states in the United States. Okay, I'll go with it for now. I don't really see, I don't get it, but I'll go with it, that's fine. So yeah, I mean, I would hope people can set that aside and just say, I'm gonna give him a chance. I'm gonna give him a chance. I'm going to help his campaign out. Let's see what he can do.
Okay.
And if I'm scaring you with my forcefulness, I'm sorry. It's been a long journey in this. I've been working on this for years. So when people ask me questions, I get excited.
All right, what are some of the social issues that you want to see?
Well, you're going to have to be much more specific than that. I'm not a politician, and I don't want to become a politician. So when someone says, okay, in 30 seconds, answer all the social issues you want to change, I'm going to look at them and say, I'm sorry, I need you to be much more specific, and if you want to have a intellectual conversation about it, let's do it. But I am not going to throw confetti in the air and try and impress you so that way you can give me your money for the campaign. No, I'm here to give you the truth and how we're going to fix these situations. So if you have a specific social issue that you want to talk about, let's dabble into it.
All right, let's talk a little bit about gun control on a social level.
Gun control is an interesting subject because when we're looking at the issue of gun control, we accidentally seem to mold both the emotional response of it and the logical response of it into one section. And I feel when we do that, things get a little messy in the message. We start coming up with arguments that aren't really relevant to the original subject. You have the media starting to find stories such as here's what happened here, here's what happened here, here's what happened in the past 20 years. So here's my overall response to this. First of all, I cannot, as a governor, I cannot enforce a law, and the state cannot enforce a law that says we are going to restrict certain types of guns based upon capacity or if it's militarized or not, and then allow other guns if the general public does not approve of it. And that always comes to any decision that's ever made on any type of legislative piece, proposition, or economic reform, or anything like that. So when the state comes forward and says, oh, well, this is what you guys wanted, and then they approve it, and everyone's scratching their head saying, I don't really ever remember approving that, but it's going to happen anyways, let's see what happens, it has to stop at that point. So here's what I think. Do I believe that you have the constitutional rights to bear arms? And considering that that Constitution is very outdated and has not been upgraded to represent our current society, I think is a fair assumption. But in any case, it's the law. It's the Constitution. You have the right to bear arms. I get that. Do I also have to consider the fact that there are a lot of individuals and there are a lot of parents and there are a lot of cities right now that are very concerned with the fact that we have M16s and M4s and AK-47s and grenade launchers out in the street. Okay, I can see where that concern can come in too. So I also have to figure out a way of how we're going to protect these people while giving another constituents what they want. So here's a simple solution, and I think it alleviates any kind of mass discussion that we're going to have when it comes to, well, I think you're wrong and I'm right, or I'm, vice versa, whatever. What if we said, we will allow all guns to be purchased if Californians vote on it and they say, sure, it's fine. And we also said at the same time, but when it comes to militarized weapons, extended clips and magazines, or anything that could be specified for a military upgrade, alongside those specific weapons, we will do an increased sales tax on just those weapons. When it comes to standard handguns, standard shotguns, standard hunting rifles, everything stays the same. But for these guns that are on a dangerous aspect, we'll say we're going to go ahead and increase the sales tax. So we're allowing this as far as people being able to purchase any type of weapon they want, but at the same time we're protecting society by saying it's not going to be as affordable as it used to be.
And what about the part of the population that believes all guns are on a dangerous level?
Now you're messing with the Constitution. And I think this can be said for a lot of different aspects when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to same-sex marriage, when it comes to something as simple as environmental protection. It's always going to come down to they will take, not they, but certain individuals will take an incident, something that happens, and then spread it out and say, well, it's all guns, or it's all this, or it's all that. And you can't really do that. Not anymore. And we do that all the time when we talk about parties at the same time. We say, well, all Republicans are evil. That's not true. I mean, come on, hold on. I know a lot of Republicans, and they have been very supportive of my cause. They've been very supportive of my candidacy. Sure, again, we don't agree on everything, but we're saying, it's okay, we're figuring it out along the way. Or they say Democrats, all Democrats just spend money and they don't care at all about fiscal responsibility. Again, not necessarily true. So when you have those people that say, well, it's all guns and all guns are dangerous, yes, I can see how it'd be dangerous, but the prime example that I used, and someone asked me the same question online, they sent me an email, and so I responded to it. When we go get our license here in California, there's a process. In the beginning, you have to go take this class, right? And it's not just 1 hour, it's not just for 1 week. It's, I think, for about a month, if I remember correctly. It's for a while. And they psychologically test you and prepare you on every aspect on the road that they can think of in order to make you safe. I don't know if you watch this, but I remember watching Red Asphalt, right, when they turned it on, and they're like, if you're not careful, here's what's going to happen, and they put the tape in, and there's all these people, real actual people, dead on the screen, blood everywhere, and I'm looking at my classmates going, yeah, no, I'm not going to be speeding on the road, like, that's ridiculous, like, who would do that, right? After you do that, then you have to go take your permit test, right? And it's a written permit test. If you fail a certain amount, you're not allowed to get your permit. Once you do get your permit, then you have to accumulate a certain amount of hours with a certified driver. I think you can see where I'm going with this example, right? This is on average, 2,500-pound vehicle that has the capacity to kill the driver and anyone else on the road. And they say, well, it's not the car that kills people, it's the driver that does. Same thing can be said about guns. It's not the gun that kills people, it's the person pulling the trigger. So what if also on top of this sales tax we say, and this whole background discussion too is ridiculous. I have never heard of a criminal going into a gun shop, filling out a form, and then them doing a background check and saying, oh, you're good to go. Here you go, here's your gun. I've rarely, if ever, heard that. So background checks are fine, okay? We don't need to spend any more money on that as far as upgrading it or making it more intensive or aggressive. I think what we do need to do, too, like we do with getting a driver's license, is maybe psychologically analyze these people who are trying to purchase a gun. and make sure that they are mentally capable of handling the responsibilities of owning this deadly weapon.
So instead of one class to get your concealed handgun license, would you rather it be a month long or?
See, that's the thing. You know, when people start putting in numbers and they say, well, how long? I don't know. You know, this is something that we have to sit down as a group when we're talking about building the policy, something we're going to have to also talk with NRA members, something we're going to have to talk with everyone else who may disagree with having the right to own a gun and say, you know, and also talking to these professionals who are, you know, masters in psychology and asking them what is the minimum amount of time needed to professionally evaluate someone and making sure that they can handle this gun. I think then, on top of the sales tax, on top of the background check, on top of making sure they can mentally handle it, I would not be surprised if crime drops at a pretty rapid rate. And you would see a much more peaceful transition from let's argue about gun control to, okay, we've got that solved, let's move on.
What is part of your views on the transportation system for California?
Another complicated one. And I don't say complicated as in no one can understand it. Politicians use that phrase a lot, and I'm sorry, I use it a lot too. It's out of habit. Politics is not complicated at all. They just make it sound complicated so that way you can go, oh, I trust you, and you know, we fall into that whole discussion again. But transportation is interesting in there.
We can start with public transportation.
I think, honestly, at this point, why we haven't upgraded certain public transportations is a little confusing. You know, we at one point were trying to build this massive train rail, right, that was going to start from basically Southern California to go all the way down to Northern California, or all the way up to Northern California. I thought it was a fantastic idea. I said, how are you going to power it? How are you going to fund it? What's going to be the side routes for these stops? What's the time expected on building construction and then making it run properly? And so when they came out with all these figures and numbers, I got really interested as to why they decided not to do it. And then it came into the discussion of, well, we'd have to raise taxes. Well, we'd have to implement certain tax policies when people purchase items or tickets or this and that. And it still didn't make a whole lot of sense. And then it popped in my head when I started digging around a little bit more, which is, who do you think would be losing out the most if we did something like this?
The state?
Not exactly. The state would actually be doing okay. Because if you even charge something like $5, we'll go as low as that, $5 per ticket for every person that goes on that, you could almost pay off the entire construction and maintenance of it in roughly around 2 to 3 years. If everyone was using it properly and the amount of people using it per day stayed on average around a couple thousand or something like that. It could be done. It could be done very easily. So I started thinking, who has the most money invested in types of transportation and energy? Which is
Oil companies.
exactly. But this is not to say that oil companies are bad people. I'm done with that argument too. I don't want to start with that anymore. All right, they're not bad companies. I've actually spoken with several of their executives. Can't name who, but they're here to make money. Okay, that's pretty obvious. It's true. I'm not upset about it. If I started a business, I wouldn't start a business to say, okay, well, you know, in a month I'm going to go broke, but I'm going to keep going. I mean, you have to make money. I get it. They're huge corporations. They've helped build a lot of infrastructures in this state, particularly for the past 50 years. They've helped out a lot, right? So for us to say, well, it's your fault and you're the evil ones and we need this public transport, and it just starts unraveling into this, like, you just take a deep breath, relax, let's figure this out. I think if we approach these companies, and I say I think because I'm going to go ahead and assume I'm almost 100% sure if we approach these companies differently. If we went up to them and we said, I don't want to argue with you, I don't want to take what you have away from you, but here's what's going on. Californians want something different. They want a different type of energy source. They want better public transportation. They want to spend less on their gas. They technically would like something like hydrogen or solar or even things like, what Bloom Energy is doing over here in Sunnyvale, where they run generators on minerals with no effect on the environment whatsoever, and some of these generators can last upwards of a year. Google has 4 of them powering one of their biggest facilities right now, and they have said nothing but good things about it. So if we went up to these companies and said, we want you to be a part of this, we want you to invest in this, we want to make sure that we can secure your investments, at the same time we want to bring the public morale back to, oh, okay, these companies are helping us out. I'll give you a chance again. Okay, they're helping the environment, they're saving money for your wallet. I don't see the downside here. And now the biggest thing is because they want to wait until there's the last drop of oil left and things get really bad to where we're freaking out and looking for a miracle. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pre-plan that out and say that's probably not a good idea. We should probably figure this out before it gets to that point. So as far as public transportation goes, I think we definitely need to start not talking but initiating and producing renewable energy resources for these buses, these trains. I think there's also different types of smaller technology that's coming out as well. I know, for instance, in Seattle, they have this program, which San Francisco does something similar, but I think it needs to be expanded quite drastically, where you can not own, but rent a car through a program that you have to sign up for. And you pay a monthly fee, and it's a energy efficient or renewable energy vehicle, or if it's not in use, you can just scan your card on the windshield and it allows you to rent the car for this many hours or whatever. And basically people are just sharing vehicles and making sure everything's clean and good to go without having to spend money on gas. So if you're spending nationally on average roughly around $350 a month, and that's just on a low average. I know you were like, no, I spend way more than that. That is just on a ballpark low average. Now imagine if you could save that every month. And where would that money go?
Obviously back to the economy, for number one.
Pay my rent, get better food for groceries. Oh, you know what? I got some more saved up. I'm gonna do a little shopping, go get myself some new shoes, whatever. I mean, there is over $100 billion circulating in this state right now, but we're not utilizing any of it because everyone's scared and holding on to it, with good reason. I mean, we are not looking too good, and I know some of the state officials are saying, oh, we're back on track. A lot of economists are saying, no, actually, that's not true at all. So I think that's definitely one area we're going to have to focus on, for sure. If I ever don't answer...
What type of energy methods are you speaking of that you know of that are in works right now on a transportation level?
So here's an interesting fact that a lot of people don't know or haven't considered. When Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor, he did this big ad campaign to get the new hydrogen vehicles on the road. I don't know if you guys remember that at all. It was, I for one was really excited about it. I said, finally, we've got it. We figured it out. We worked with the oil companies. We're good to go. Then nothing happened. And so again, I started digging around. And it totally made sense once you put the pieces together. You can't build a car that doesn't have anywhere to pump its fuel. So if I were to build 37 million hydrogen cars, but in a radius of roughly, I don't know, I think on average it's 2 to 250 miles, there's a hydrogen pump, people would be more inclined to not buy that and buy the engine that gets, at least 50 to 60 miles per gallon. So that's our biggest challenge right now, is if we do want to do something like hydrogen energy in these transportation devices, we need to seriously consider the type of money and capital it's going to take in order to build these pumping stations. And I mean, it can start off in a slow process in the beginning, but it needs to be accessible. You can't have something that's not accessible and expect people to buy that product. That's like saying, well, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go buy a car that runs on manure, and I'm a big city boy, and the nearest farm is 200 miles away, so every time I have to fuel up, I have to go find a farmer that's willing to give up his manure. I mean, I know it sounds like a ridiculous example, but it's the truth. I mean, there are cars that do run on manure. They smell horrible, but I mean, at least it works. Or the ones that run on grease oil. They have some of those in LA, and I mean, you can't just take regular old grease and put it into your tank. You have to put it through this machine that processes it, cleans it out a little bit, makes sure it's just the pure chemicals of the grease. I mean, it's not exactly cheap, it's not exactly easy. So I think that's one area we're definitely going to have to work on. As far as solar energy, we're on the beginning stages of it. There's a lot of potential for growth in solar energy. And I think if we could maybe fund a little bit more money that way, we would see how much we could harness from that type of energy. So I think it's an area that we're definitely going to have to focus on as well.
So what is your stance on the job market and unemployment rates?
It's a big problem. Working with some of the equations and algorithms that I have for the past couple of years, it was a little complicated to figure out how to get these companies to hire people. And then it popped in my head. I can't force companies to hire anyone. I can help them in giving them a path to hire people, but I can't literally go up to these companies and say, you need to start hiring people. That's too much government. We start having that whole conversation of what the government can and cannot do. So here's what I came up with. When we talk about tax exemptions and what companies and corporations are taking based upon the total revenue and profits that they make each year on those taxes, it seems to be a little one-sided. Meaning, when they do some of these tax exemptions, I feel as if it applies to them, but it doesn't benefit the state or anyone else. So then I came up with an idea, and I was talking with Steve about this as well. What if we went up to these companies and we said, for every California resident that you hire and has been living here in California for, let's just hypothetically say, a year, we'll go ahead and give you a tax exemption for every single Californian that you hire. On top of that, you're providing them with a fair annual wage with health benefits. I mean, we can't tell them to do that, but this is the assumption that it comes obviously with the job.
Okay.
What if we also said, for every amount and percentage of production that you bring back to California, we'll give you an even bigger tax exemption, which also creates more jobs, so then if you hire more people, that's double on top of the exemption that we're giving you. So people say, well, wait a minute, you're just giving them more tax write-offs. Well, I'm giving them more tax write-offs, but it's also benefiting the state and us as well. So now we're talking about unemployment going down. There's a state saving roughly around $10 to $20 billion a year right off the bat. If we're hiring, if it can drop from 9% all the way down to 5% within a year or two, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money we're saving. And it goes well beyond $10, $12 billion a year. Now we're talking about healthcare expenses that we don't have to pay for anymore because the companies are taking care of them. That's more money that we're saving. So when people think that we're giving them tax exemptions, we technically are, but we're also saving a lot of money at the same time. The biggest thing I hear from particularly is college students. College students are in the hole right now, and I totally get it. I mean, for any other politician that's out there that says, I get it, I'm with you students, we gotta help you out, they don't understand what's going on. They have no clue what's going on. So for me that, since I was, I'm gonna say it, a recent graduate of college, not too long ago, I totally sympathize and understand why, statistically speaking, more students are staying in college longer. Because they know once they graduate, they're probably not going to get a job. And they're probably going to be really working about 2-3 jobs, wondering if their career is ever going to get off the ground. That's why college students in California, and more particularly in America, are not graduating within 4 years. It's not because they're having fun and partying. Partly. It's mostly because they are very scared of entering the real world, with good reason. You find a lot of students switching their degrees to degrees where they think they can make a lot of money, or degrees that are in high demand, even though it's not what they want to do. And they hate themselves for it. And they go into this career field with such a mentality of depression and this is not what I wanted to do with my life, and I wanted to follow my dreams. I'm sorry, that gets me right there every time, and it makes me really upset that we were told when we were younger, you go to school, you're a good person, you pay your taxes, even if you didn't get great grades, you just followed your dreams and you're passionate about it, you can do it. I'd be surprised if I could find one person in this world, or particularly in California, that's in that position right now that's saying, yep, I did exactly what they told me to do and I'm getting everything I want. It's not the case anymore. So this comes into the fact of student loans. This comes into what we're going to do for jobs for students. And here's what I think we should do. And it goes on the same basis of this whole tax exemption plan, which is what if we started building a network communication with these companies? And we started saying, listen, for every student that you hire here in California for an internship, or for a real job, we're going to give you a huge tax exemption. Because at the same time, you're going to offer to pay off their student loans while giving them health benefits, while also saying, I'm going to make sure that you don't have to worry about anything, and I'm going to give you a fair wage at the same time. And we're going to work with your schedule so that way you can still keep getting good grades. What if then we started building this bridge of communication? And these companies were hiring these creative, intellectual students who developed something for them that transformed a department for them, or gave them an idea for a new service or a new product. Now they're getting experience. Now even if the company, after they graduate school, doesn't hire them, they have something on their resume that says, yeah, I do have that experience. You can hire me as an entry level or as a manager or any other position that I'm willing to go for. And I don't have to worry about my student loans, and I can actually live my life. That'd be an interesting concept. And I've talked with companies about this, and they say it's really not a bad idea. Why aren't we doing that right now? No clue. I have no idea why we're not doing it. Furthermore, I think it's a little sad when you talk to some of these college students and they're not even living lavish lives. They're not living in mansions. They're not even living in a decent house. They're living in apartments and condominiums that they can barely afford rent, and they can barely afford to eat healthy, and they can barely afford to drive around anywhere because gas is expensive. And they're working jobs that have nothing to do with their career. It's really getting to a point of, are we just going to keep hiring people outside of California and have them develop our world while we're still trying to send our kids to school in hopes that they're going to become successful and help progress the future of our state? I mean, it gets a little scary at some point. So I'm with you guys. Totally with you guys on that one.
How would you point your views for women's rights, including in the job market?
This is an interesting one. And hopefully the women of my family will be very proud of me. I'm going to say this point blank. And some people may take to it, some of them may not. I have absolutely no idea and can't even fathom why we are still discussing this. It is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that at one point women fought aggressively just to have the right to vote, and now we're coming back to, well, we need to consider what their rights are and what they can and cannot do, say, or appropriate with or without their bodies, whatever. It actually really upsets me. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. The fact of the matter is, they are, if not as equal or better in some situations when it comes to personal life, social experiences, work atmosphere, education. Women in California and in the United States are getting more degrees than men right now, and in some cases are even advancing their education in masters, PhDs, and doctorates. So for us to come forward and say, oh, wait a minute, you're not exactly equal to us, it makes no sense. I just don't get it. I don't get it. So my position is, well, we need to stop arguing about this. They are equal, end of discussion. That's it. It's end of discussion. There's no, well, what about? No, they're equal. Now, when it comes to certain situations, if, for instance, you're talking about, domestic violence issues or certain situations of incest, I think now we're dabbling in, again, constitutional and personal rights. So how do we handle that? Well, we handle it as in they're equal, they have their rights, and they should be able to do what they want to do. That's it. As far as our state goes, I would love to see more women in our state. I would actually love to have some sort of measure or law that states that for as many men that are in the executive, legislative branch or my cabinet, there has to be an equal number of women. I think that'd be fantastic. I think we'd see huge progress too if we started giving a little bit more dynamics in our discussions and processing these laws and making sure our economy survives.
Interesting.
I know. I know. Well, the man found it interesting too. The gentleman I was talking to. So, like I said, I'm blunt, and I think that's why people are very intrigued by what I'm doing.
Okay, and what are your plans for helping the budget?
I'll say this. This campaign will never be about bashing any other candidate. It will never be about finding how much dirt I can get on someone else. I would hope that the media would respect the wishes that I'm portraying right now and saying that, okay, we'll try to make this a fair election. We'll try to make this about how are we going to fix California. I will say this though. Cutting areas that are desperately needed and then telling everyone that you balance the budget knowing that there is going to be a huge federal cut coming doesn't settle well with me. When you cut education, when you cut healthcare, when you cut anything else as far as public transportation, environmental protection acts, safety regulations, anything that is the base foundation for how society runs and is structured, you're gonna run into problems. And We've been seeing this for the past 5-6 years now. And so now when they're saying, oh, well, we have to do more cuts, something doesn't add up. Something doesn't add up when city council members are getting paid more than the governor, $432,000 as a retirement plan for the rest of their life. Or when city mayors are caught gambling $1.2 billion of the city's funds, literally gambling their funds at casinos. Or when you call the state, you ask for data sheets on funds and resources for all the money that's being used in California, and there's millions upon millions of dollars titled as miscellaneous. But you'll never find out what miscellaneous actually means. So when people say, how are you going to solve the budget? How are you going to solve the deficit? I guarantee you, if you get someone who isn't corrupted by the system, and he comes in or she comes in, and they look at the books, and they really start to micromanage, and you start applying transitions of accountability, reliability, responsibility, and where every penny is going, I would not be surprised if the state budget would be solved in a year. I need to work with our Congress pretty closely, and we need to get the federal government off our backs. Having Californians pay upwards of over 30% of their taxes to the federal government without really having any of that money directly affect us, again, makes no sense. It's economically flawed. I don't get that. So that's where Steve and the rest of the constituents that are working in the Congress have to really figure out a way to lower that. When we can do that, then we can start figuring out our tax brackets a little bit more closely, how to adjust them to alleviate some pressure off of the lower and middle class, while technically not raising taxes for the higher income, but just making sure that it's fair. That's all. Not going to pay more, but it's fair. On top of adding tax exemptions like we previously talked about, that benefits both sides, right? When we also do that, now we're talking again about, okay, so where are we going to invest our money? Well, first of all, we need to drastically update our schools. I'm talking about how they're powered, to the type of material that's being used. Why aren't we working with companies for telecommunication networks? Why aren't we using online books that are less than half the price of what students are paying right now? Again, public transportation for these students at the same time. When we're talking about medical or any type of healthcare, better services, upgraded devices, talking to looking at new research for new diseases, preventative care. I'm sure there are people that love their doctors, but I also know that doctors who are good at their job don't want to see their patients every 2 days or every week, right? That's premium costs, that's gas going into your car because you have to travel to go see your doctor. It doesn't make any sense to make sure that it's not affecting their patients' lives and it's preventing them from getting sick or making them healthier. Now we're talking about more savings. So for me, it's yes, are we going to spend a little money? Sure. Is it going to save us a lot of money? Absolutely. So that's how you balance a budget.
Okay, how are you expecting people to come up with, or supporting your raise, so to speak, on taxes when a majority of Californians receive IOU checks in the mail from the state?
Now you're talking about a problem that's going on with communication between the unions, the state, and the teachers themselves. But I find it a little curious that we had certain individuals in our state that really supported certain propositions to raise taxes for the specificities in schools. Then we go ahead and furlough roughly around 3,000 teachers. on top of more of these IOUs. So my question is it really the state's fault? Or is it just that we're not communicating well enough with these unions? Because these unions are supposed to be helping us out at the same time. If we ever did have any shortcomings or shortfalls when it comes to teachers making sure that they're protected, they're getting financially secured, all those specifications. So it's more of dabbling into the records. I mean, you can't fire more teachers, expect classroom sizes to increase, and then expect teachers to do more of the workload. It doesn't make any sense. I definitely think we do need more teachers. The question comes in, can we save enough money in order to hire these teachers? I mean, if you look at it from a different retrospect, we're spending a lot of money in other areas that we don't need, or we're wasting a lot of money that we don't need. Why not save that money and just give it back to hiring teachers who, one, are owed a lot of money, and two, who desperately are looking for jobs and helping educate our youth? I don't see any shortfalls there. I try to wake up every day with a smile on my face. I'm very thankful for every little thing, very thankful for all these staff members that I have that believe in what I'm doing, all these other people that are starting to support me, and there's other media outlets that we're not allowed to talk about yet, but I was very fortunate enough to get in contact with these people. And as much as our politics is very serious, and there are some very serious issues, I do think we need to lighten up just a little bit. I mean, we're Californians, for Pete's sake. I mean, we have, you know, parades where in San Francisco, you know, it's the gay pride parades and the whole city shut down where everyone's dressed. I mean, I know that there's people that go there that probably don't agree with same-sex marriage, but they go anyways because they're letting loose, they're having fun, they're understanding that it's just, we're here to enjoy everyone's company. So we need to bring everyone together. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, or anything else in between. I don't care if you're white, black, Hispanic, or Asian. I don't care if you're religious or non-religious, if you're gay or straight, or if you're a man or woman, rich, middle class, or poor. Those conversations are done. It's time to move on. So when people say, again, why? Why should we trust you? Why should we believe you? Why should we don't you? Why are you always laughing? Why are you always smiling? What's with the humor? It's me. It's me. I think instead of looking at someone who may be not exactly always pleased to do their job, it's a little uncomfortable for Californians to see someone who's actually happy with what they do. Like this makes me happy. I like to help people. I like politics.
Right, since you brought up the gay community, what are your thoughts for gay marriage?
I have no idea why we're still talking about it. So I mentioned this to a couple of groups who were both non-religious and religious. Talked with a couple priests on this. Talked with some state officials. Here's the interesting aspect of my solution. What if we told these ideological groups, okay, you don't want people getting married who are same-sex in your facility. Fine. Okay, that's fine. As long as you don't break any civil law, or you don't harm anyone, you're not rude, you just say, I'm very sorry, we don't allow that here. If there is a gay couple that does find a priest that says, oh yeah, we do it here, it's fine. Or we don't do it at this facility, but if you pick a different location, I'd be happy to do it for you. Or if they find a judge that's available, or a governor, or goes to the state capitol, or goes to the city capitol, right? Or rents out a venue and finds someone that does have a California license to marry people. why stop them? I'm very comfortable saying that I completely agree with same-sex marriage and we need to move on. That's the end of that.